Welcome back. This is Stuff I Find Interesting, episode 14, part 2 of 3. The first was kind of a recap of what we've done up till now. And the second part is going to be pictures and headlines that I find interesting. So if you've come back, welcome. Nice to see you again. And if you're here for the first time, I post stuff that I find interesting, and it's as simple as that. The third part of this will be the controversy portion, and we are going to talk about Tartaria, which is a very, very, very interesting subject. Okay, picture time. This is the District of Columbia before the Washington Monument was built. So look at that. They talk about Washington being a swamp. It actually really was a swamp, and they actually really did have to drain it to put the buildings on it. Otherwise, the buildings would have sunk. So the Army of Engineers was involved, and they, helped clear the land and help, get the water going elsewhere. And there you go. Lewis and Clark. I have no idea how I came across this, but I thought, that's really interesting. You think about these dudes, they got in a canoe, and they basically went across the country, right? Like crazy. Now, if you want to know if Lewis and Clark went through your backyard, here you go. It will be in the links. You can follow the map. You can see where they went. There's some details about maybe places they've stopped along the way. And I think what got me going on this was there was an interview. There's a show like What Are Your Roots or something where they take celebrities and they investigate their background and then they come up with something shocking or something the celebrity didn't know. Like, oh my God, I'm related to the Queen of England. Anyhow, Edward Norton, the actor, is related to Pocahontas. Pocahontas is his great, I think maybe 13 times great grandmother, directly by blood. So how cool is that? It's totally random. He was shocked. I would be shocked too. I'd be like, I'm related to freaking Pocahontas. Like, what's up with that? This is Piranesi, who is one of my favorite artists. And we'll be coming back to him because I think he kind of relates to Tartaria. And I'll tell you why. Because of the ruin that he constantly displays. He constantly displays like civilization just in ruin with these grand crumbling things, right? His work is very fascinating. We're going to come back to him. But just as an introduction, here's Piranesi. Piranesi, audience, Piranesi. Some women like diamonds. Other women like me want something like this. So this is a blue chalcedony stone in this gold sealing ring. Gold sealing ring, so the person would take it and go and put their seal on something. And there's probably some quote that I cannot read. Maybe one of you can read it. The Grand Canyon. This is from the Andrew Dixon White Architectural Photographs. We've looked at some other photos from the same collection. But the thing I find really interesting about this picture, and check this out. Do those look like windows to you? It kind of looks like it could have been a structure, maybe, right? Maybe. And then if we go over here, we've got this. Maybe that's the roof of something. I don't know. There is some speculation that the Grand Canyon is not as ancient as we're told. This is a controversy that we'll probably come back to, but I'll include it in the links so that you can read it. This is something that was suggested to me, so I've just sort of started scratching the surface about it, and it's saying that there was a catastrophic event. The water went through and created what we see. So what we see is not so much erosion as it is a massive flooding event of some kind. And it really goes into the genesis of it. Our major scientific objective is to understand the history of the Colorado Plateau. Why does it exist? When was it formed? And it has some sources. Now, have you ever heard of the Nisud pyramids? I had not until I saw these pictures. These are pyramids in Nigeria. They were made of clay and they've lasted for 3,000 years. So they were made pretty good because clay breaks down fairly easy. So I'm sure they had some kind of recipe that they used, much like the Romans. Like the Romans made concrete. We couldn't figure out how the concrete was so strong. Oh my God, how did they make the concrete so strong? We can't make the same kind of concrete. And then we discovered that they used seawater. And seawater was the magical ingredient that they used in their matrix to make everything kind of stick together. So I'm thinking they had some sort of technology where they were able to figure out how to make a clay structure last for 3,000 years. It talks a little bit about the Nubian kingdom, which is a fascinating thing. Now, this is the marble throne, and this was a throne of Persia when Persia existed. And this was the throne of, what the heck is this guy's name? Karim Khan Zand, who I'm going to talk about in just a second, but this is what it would have looked like. So he would have climbed up those stairs, and he would have sat up there, and then people would have come up, and they would have, said something. Oh, I don't even know what they would have. Some sort of king thing. But if we look back here, we can see the design, much like the picture that we looked at, I think it was yesterday. And I said that it was common to this type of architecture, and there it is. Karim Zan Zand. So he was a ruler of Persia in 1751 to 1779. He was a very fair king. He was a good king, but there was something about him that I wanted to share. Oh, so they made the throne for him, and he didn't want to sit on it. He was like, nah, I just want to sit on a carpet on the ground. He wasn't that kind of guy. But the throne remained, and it stayed there. So actually, I'm incorrect. He would not have climbed it. And they made it for him, and he was like, yeah, no, I think I'll pass, thanks. And it goes into his reign and his war with the Ottoman Empire. But he was a very powerful king who was, he ushered in a period of peace that up until that time had been unprecedented. Headlines. Masks from warrior tomb unearthed in Siberia. So these are made out of gypsum. They're from 2 BC to 5 AD. When these people passed away, they would put gypsum on their face and harden, much like a plaster. So what you're looking at are the actual death masks of these people. And it's pretty powerful stuff, right? So the funeral system used in this crypt in Kemerovo, which is western Siberia, shows the burials to have been in the twilight of this race's hold on this part of Siberia between the 2nd century BC and the 6th century AD. So it was towards the end of their time. Earlier, their bodies were simply buried in the ground, but here at Sheskakavo 3 tomb, the bodies were substantially cremated, leaving only large bones. Then the remains were put inside dummy bodies made of leather or fabric. And the next came the gypsum mask. They also found miniature replicas of swords, arrows, and quivers, and ceramic vessels, bronze buckles, elements of harnesses. And then it goes into it. But this is an area where it's kind of remote. Like, we're like, oh, well, people don't live there. People never lived there. And this shows that there was a whole civilization of people that lived here and died here and had very elaborate burial ceremonies. The Danakil Depression. Look at this place. Isn't it beautiful? Don't you want to go here on your honeymoon? So it's very kind of reminiscent of Yellowstone, right? The geological activity. And this is a map of where it's located. So it's in near Djibouti in Ethiopia. And this is a very geological active area where 3 different plates come together and form this really low point with lots and lots of activity. So it's the triple junction of 3 tectonic plates and has a complex geological history. It has developed as a result of Africa and Asia moving apart, causing rifting and volcanic activity. Erosion, inundation by the sea, the rising and falling of the ground have all played their part in the formation of this depression. And it goes into how it was developed. It's a heritage site I guess people like to take pictures there. I mean, it's very obviously very interesting looking. Here's another picture. Crazy, crazy, crazy looking. Look at that. I don't think I would be standing on that rock because if you fall in, no bueno. There's a guy who fell into Yellowstone, and the only thing they found was one of his shoes and part of his foot in the shoe. The rest of him had been eaten up by the acidic brine. Water-filled eruption crater, and it goes on about it, but it's an interesting thing. But the reason why I bring that up is because I was reading this article about this guy who deliberately went there to take pictures, and he wrote about it. But there are people that live there. They don't have running water. They don't have electricity. They don't have any of the resources that any of us kind of take for granted. They're in the middle of freaking nowhere, the hottest place on earth, one of the lowest places on earth. They herd goats, salt. They mine salt. They farm, and they're known as a very hardy folk with feisty tempers. I'm sure there's a story behind that, but that's what they're known as. Here we have a salt caravan. This is a modern picture. This is not an old picture. This is still how things are done. The salt is collected, and they are brought by caravan. This is a volcano that is nearby. It's a tourist spot now. You can go and sit on the edge, and you can look at the volcano. Another activity I don't think I want any part of. And it goes into more about his experience and the Danakil depression. I'm not sure why I saved this, but we're going to keep it moving. I think this was supposed to be in the next one, but this is Turkey, and the reason why it's Turkey is because I was thinking about Turkey this morning because of the earthquake, and I was looking at some old pictures. But I put it in next episode. Ancient underwater forest discovered off Norfolk coast. Ancient underwater forest. So there was a forest and then it got buried. Well, that's interesting. What do they mean? What do they mean, ancient forest? Let's look up some stuff here. What's this? This is Doggerland. This is not just shallow water. This is not just like area that you could walk across when the tide goes out. This was actual land, practically a friggin' continent. There, look at it. You can see the picture. It's not there anymore. It's gone. That whole area is just gone. And I find it weird that we don't talk about it more. Like it's a whole continent that's not there anymore. And it's a whole area where people lived, they farmed, and their home went into the sea. And so right now this is being studied, not just because it's a whole land that disappeared with history, but because it sort of replicates what is going to happen to us with climate change and the rising water. And they're kind of looking to see what the chronology was. Where did people go? What did they do? Was it sudden? Was it slow? It says rising sea levels may seem a modern concern, but we have been through it many times before. Sea levels have changed by as much as 100 to 150 meters over hundreds of thousands of years as ice sheets come and go, with particularly dramatic variations in the centuries after the last ice age. So this is Doggerland from 12,000 years ago. Not easily accessible, not easy to find out about. So, but they found in the Baltic Sea region, there's a similar kind of, further up in Doggerland, they found textile fragments, wooden paddles, Mesolithic dwellings, intact wall stakes, bark floors, dugout canoes, fishing harpoons, elm bow, all kind of protected by the water. So they're sort of excavating it and figuring out what was there. Okay, we're coming to the end of this next part, just random headlines that I find interesting. I hope you're finding it interesting too. Give you something to think about. We're back to Don's maps. Don is the OG. This is Gabustan. Gabustan is in Azerbaijan, and it's an area with a lot of ancient history. There is some discussion that perhaps Azerbaijan, Georgia, Armenia, that particular area, including maybe parts of Romania, were the cradle of civilization and where civilization started, not necessarily to the in the Middle East. So It's a theory. Here we can see where it's located, Gabustan rock art. And Gabustan has these cupules. We talked about that in a previous thingy about the cupules. What were they for? What did they do? How were they made? Why did they exist? They're all over the planet. These cupule things. This is the park area. This is Gabustan Park. This is a mud volcano, and it looks like something out of another planet. Right? Here we have some of the rock formations. There's some petroglyphs. Here we've got some dancing peoples. It looks like horses. This is a very beautifully carved. This is the landscape. As you can see, it's very dramatic, very rocky. You can see evidence kind of in the way that it's broken apart that there's probably been some geological activity that caused kind of things to collapse. Perhaps there are structures in there. Who knows? There's another wonderful picture of this is a tiny mud volcano. This is a big mud volcano. And we're going to finish off this particular episode with the musical stones of Gabustan National Park. So 12,000 years ago, they set up these 4 stones that look like this. North, south, east, and west. And they played them like musical instruments. And I will share this with you.
Muzyka zastywsze w kamnie.
And he moves to the other stone. They have different tones. So different guys would have been on different stones and they would have been banging away at the same time. These are stones. These are stones like heavy stones, but as you can hear, they have a unique kind of sound. I didn't get into the geology as to why it does that, but I'm sure there's a particular reason. So with that, we are going to stop this part 2, and next, better put on your seatbelts, folks, because it's Tartaria time.